when I was in high school, I played football and I was sort of a late to the game football player. Like my kids have been playing since like second grade. I didn't start playing. I was on the team as a freshman when we moved to Minnesota. I was on the team, but I think I played two plays. Like I wasn't really there. And then I didn't play my sophomore year. And then my junior year, we moved and my coach was like, lived down the street and he kind of convinced me to come play. And I remember him saying, I was outside throwing the ball around with a friend and he walked up the street as he just moved in and we had just moved in. He said, "Hey, you're throwing a football around. I think you should come play football. I'm the head football coach." I said, "Okay." And it was pretty much that was the recruiting conversation. Nowadays, there's all kinds of recruiting rules, but he said that, and he said, "Well, what position do you want to play?" And I said, "Well, I'm like any kid. I'm like, I want to play quarterback." So he watches me throw a ball, and then like any good coach is like, "Well, okay, this kid really can't throw the ball very well." So he says, and I threw the ball left-handed. He says, "Well, our offense is built for a right-handed quarterback," which is like saying, I have a left-handed or right-handed frisbee. It's kind of the same. But he was trying to talk me out of it. And so I heard that and I said, "Well, okay." And so I'm ambidextrous. I really hadn't thrown a football right-handed, but for the next couple of weeks, I taught myself how to throw a ball right-handed. And when I showed up to practice, I said, "I'm going to play quarterback." And he's like, "No, you didn't understand the first time I told you." And then I started throwing the ball right-handed. He's like, "Huh, okay." So long story short, I started playing quarterback. The point of this, though, is that sometimes hard work pays off. However, what I didn't understand was as I started playing that there was details to this position that I did not quite understand. And in your business, there are details that unfortunately some of us today don't understand how they impact what we do. So when I had a really good position coach, I remember we watched film and we looked and we tracked the time from the time I took the snap to the time I released the ball. I didn't realize that was such a big deal. Well, it is because you have 11 guys running at you and you got to get rid of the ball. The second thing is which foot I step with first made all the difference in the world. And I didn't realize I was stepping with the wrong foot. All those things tracked and measured improved my game immensely. So how does that relate to us as business owners? The way it relates is when you go into the Impact Mastery Roadmap software, you have two tools. One is the scorecard. This is where you track and can measure those small improvements week over week to see how you're doing, i.e. it's your film. You get to watch it and look at it and say, what is it telling me about how I can improve my game on the field as a business owner? The second, I'm going to the profit maximizer. I want to just emphasize a really key point. When I say this, and for those of you that aren't sports people, football, like you'll still get the analogy. When I have a receiver to the left of me that's running a 3-step slant, those 3 steps are important that the timing be right. And I was technically throwing on the 4th step and the ball was late because I was the wrong step first. One little change made a massive impact. And I want to show you how one little change here can make a massive impact on your business. How many of you remember what we talked about last time? Anyone recall? I gave you guys a challenge. What was the challenge I gave you last time? Holy smokes, I got to do a better job. I got to oh, go Julie, go Julie.
Wasn't it to like be making more sales calls?
Okay, well, yeah. How many hours a day should we be prospecting?
1 hour, like dedicating 1 hour to it.
Minimum 1 hour, at best 2 hours if we can do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Julie. Extra points for Julie. So here's what you do. I want you to go back and look over the last year. And this is why when you have these in your scorecard, you can take these numbers and you can go in and say, okay, look, if I have 500 leads I've generated, what is the conversion rate that I have to a customer? Okay. So let's say of these 500 that I have, this is to a customer. Excuse me. So if I have 500 leads, how much to a customer? Maybe it's 5%, right? Typically, you're gonna have a lower conversion, not just to the appointment, but to the actual customer. So let's say it's 5% of the total, okay? And last year I retained 15 customers year over year that repeat buyers, okay? And then my revenue per customer, let's say is 2,500, okay? And by the way, if anyone knows their numbers off the top of their head, I'd love to help you with this live. And then let's say your gross margin is 70%, right? And your fixed costs for the year are, let's say 25,000. Okay. Now we're going to go up and hit calculate. And I want you to look at this. So you're going to see that your net profit would be somewhere around $45,000 for the year. Not bad if you're a solopreneur, but not great. It's probably not something you're like, man, I can really grow and blow up this business and live on this and live the life I'm looking for. Okay. So let's look at this really quickly and say, what if we could increase our leads by just 10%? What difference would that make for us? Okay. Well, I got to fill in the rest. So let's say, and if you notice here, the ones in blue, are actually the only ones you can adjust and change because they're the only ones you can make an impact on. You can generate more leads. You can improve your conversion rate. You could charge potentially more revenue per customer. You could look at your cost of goods to get your gross margin higher, and you can try to cut expenses and your fixed expenses. But what I want to emphasize is this. So I'm going to say it slow so that you remember this piece. Not that you're slow. I tend to talk fast. You don't even have to fix all of these to have a massive impact. And I'll show you that. So let's say we increase leads just 10%, and let's say our conversion rate didn't even change, right? It stayed the same. We still convert at 5%. We haven't improved that. Now, I will just tell you, if you're getting more at bats, you're going to get better at your conversion rate either way. Let's say that we were able to change our revenue per customer by 10%. Okay. So it went to 2750. And let's say that our gross margin stayed the same. Okay. And let's say that even our fixed cost stayed the same. No change whatsoever. Let's see what that did to our bottom line. So look, I had a 31% increase in my bottom line by adjusting two of those numbers, 31%. So I went from 45,000 to 58,958. That's a big jump over a year, $18,000 jump, okay? Or $13,000 jump. Look, if you could come in here and you could increase your leads by 20%, your conversion rate by just 5%. Let's say you didn't even change your pricing. You kept your pricing the same, and you work with like Jen or a Kayla, and you get your costs instead of 25,000, you work really hard over the year to get them to 22,000. It's just not that much change. Okay. And oh, because I changed the price. This is why price is so important. If we go back and we change our price 5%, even 61,890. The reason why this tool is so valuable is, what could it help you do when you're making decisions? What could you do if you could look at the scenarios and say, does it make sense for me to adjust my pricing? Does it make sense for me to focus on my margin? Maybe my margin's fine. I just need to get more customers. Does this make sense? These small little steps, these small little changes, this tool is meant for you to be able to adjust that. Again, by simply adjusting just 2 or 3 of those 5 levers, in this scenario, my profit margin, my net profit increased 37%. I hope there's an aha going off for you that it doesn't take for us to go, hey, I'm only making 50K and I want to make 100K. Our mind might tell us that means I have to double my effort. That's not accurate. Just proved that. It's not doubling your effort. It's making 2 small tweaks of, in this case, 5% or 10% increase in leads, 10% increase in my conversion. That's it. I don't have to adjust anything else. That makes sense? So I share this with you today because recently in some conversations with many of you, there's a bit of overwhelm to say, again, I'm making 50K, I want to make 200K. Well, these small little changes are the details that I was talking about in the sports analogy. These are the small little details of holding on to that ball a half a second too long and getting sacked, or a half a second quicker and getting rid of the ball. These are the differences that make the difference for a business owner. Okay, so I want you guys to this week go in and make sure you're keeping your scorecard up to date, you're tracking and measuring, and then you're working on your profit maximizer to say, what does the future look like? Remember, how many of you mentioned this? Several of you mentioned in your sharing good news that the science of scaling from Ben Hardy, the impossible goal, the impossible future. Well, go put your impossible future in the profit maximizer and see what has to be true to hit it. Kayla mentioned, I can't even visualize being a millionaire. That's important. I've got to be able to visualize. I got to be able to work from that goal. Well, go in and put those numbers in to see what has to be true for that to hit. And you may find it's a lot more attainable than you think. And it's not doubling, tripling, or 10xing your effort. It's more about just focusing on 2 or 3 of those levers that make it work.